I'm going to start your day off with like joy. How does that sound? We're going to have fun. Okay, so I have a show on the Disney Channel where I teach moms and kids how to take photos. I've been a professional photographer for just about 15 years, and I've been with Sony for over 10 now. And I'm going to show you some of my favorite like gear, lenses. Everyone get this card right here. On the flip side is a photo of like everything that's in my camera bag. And so this is so great because if at any point you're wondering like what my favorite go-to portrait lens is, like you'll see it on there. You can talk to someone about it at the counter after. But today, okay, let's talk about 4 keys to storytelling portraits. I feel like the story is what we always want more of in our photos. And so like, how do we do that? How do we like stay out of feeling like our images are generic, right? Or there's like, I've been to this park a million times, or it just doesn't feel original. So some of these elements may at first seem basic, but I want to like dive deeper into them. And the first one I want to talk about is light. Obviously, light is so essential to us as photographers, but I want you to think about using light as another character in your image. Does that make sense? So you have mom and you have the little girl, and the light is so intense, it's so extreme that it becomes like a third character in the image. And so I get this effect by shooting into the light. This is what you call backlight. And this is one of the reasons I love the mirrorless system, because I can just see, where's my camera? Amy, can I have my camera really quick? Thank you. I can just, here, let me give you this. I can just see on the back of my camera using the live view, I can see like where that light is, like how dramatic it is. Do I want more of it? Do I want less of it? And really like push the envelope. And so I don't want, when we start out with portrait photography, we want enough light just to illuminate our subjects. But man, once we get there, we want to start pushing the envelope and add emotion to the story with light. I've had clients before that were like so excited to do the photo shoot or do the wedding, and then I show up and I meet them, and there's like no chemistry at all. Like there's no emotion, right? And that's where light becomes my partner, because when backlight can play a role, that is accentuating emotion that maybe they're not able to give me as much, because maybe they're more introverts, or maybe they're like shy around the camera. Backlight, extreme light will like swallow all of that up. So I also love to like fill a space with light. And I rarely ever center the subject unless like the space is like leading us all right to the bride, right to the child. And so she got married in this barn, and she loved the chandeliers, right? And so capturing a wide angle shot of that. This little guy, this family's in San Francisco, and I did their shoot this fall. And before I do a photo shoot, I always ask the mom, what are your favorite characteristics about your child right now? Like, what are you in love with the most right now? And this mom, without hesitation, said, I love his hair. Like, I just love. And when my little boy was this age, I let his hair grow like this too, until one day he begged me to cut it because everyone thought he was a girl. But when she said that, I was like, oh, I know exactly where this mom is coming from. So during the photo shoot, I'm thinking of how can I highlight the hair with light? How can I accentuate that? Because that is meaningful to the mom. Okay, so this is something I want to like really like have you just think about and sink into this for a moment. Your photos that you're capturing are not for the print judges, okay? They're for the clients. And so if a photo doesn't make any sense to a print judge, it doesn't matter, because they're not the ones paying you to like keep your lights on, right? Or to like pay your bills. But if it connects emotionally to your client in a personal way, that is what key. And so write this down, because this is something you want to like never forget. You never want to forget this. As a photographer, you are always judging your work based on composition, okay? Your clients are always judging your work based on content. So often we confuse the two. So you're judging your work based on composition. They're judging your work based on content. You're looking at, did I use the right f-stop? Did I use the right shutter speed? You have so much knowledge because photography is such a sophisticated thing to do, but they don't have any of that knowledge. They're just looking at the content. They're just looking at the emotion, at who's in the image. Does that make sense? So you have to keep the two separate because sometimes we can come home from a shoot and we can feel like we did a horrible job because we're judging how we did based on our composition, not on our content. Does that make sense? Okay. Shadows is the second thing I want to hit on for storytelling elements. Okay, so again, we're looking at light. If I'm not going to use extreme light, then I'm going to go to the exact opposite extreme. So when I show up at a client's home, the first thing I do is I get to know them. I get down on my knees. I squat down. I'm eye level with the kids. I always wear a headband. I want the kids to see my face. I want them to see me happy. I love what I do. And I ask the mom, can you give me a tour of your home? And she's always like, because she's not expecting that and she maybe didn't pick up certain rooms. But what am I looking for? I'm looking for light, but I'm also looking for shadows. And I'm looking at where the shadows fall, not just inside the house, but outside of the house. And so this was right under their front door, this home in San Francisco. And see how he is standing right on the edge of the light? So the light just drops off behind him, which gives me that great like shadows and drama. Okay, so I never want to say to a kid, hey, can you kind of like stand like this and look like Jake Ruish for me? I don't want to do that, right? Because that doesn't feel authentic to the parents, right? But I do say to kids, hey, we've got this space to work with, and you can do whatever you want in this space. You just have to stay like right here because I know where the light is and where I want to keep them. But then I want to have a creative collaboration with the kids. Why do I want to do this? Does anybody know? To keep them engaged and also to keep it personal to the mom. Because when you do a shot that the child helped come up with and create, every time the mom starts crying because she's like, that's my boy, oh my gosh, I love him, right? And now this value of the shoot has just gone way deeper than getting great photos. Does that make sense? And so I asked this little boy, I'm like, you can do whatever you want. He literally like jumped up, spun around, and then was like, boom, like just like that. And he gave that, and she like fell in love with that. And she's like, oh my gosh, he's such a poser, blah, blah, blah. Such a different experience than if I had said to him, hey, can you do something like really model-esque for me, right? So shadows. I'm playing with shadows to increase emotion, to give a sense of quietness, to give a sense of like rest. If a mom, this is one of my favorite moms in the whole world. She has two kids that are like 8 and 11 years old, and at 40 she got pregnant by surprise. And she was like done having babies, and so she feels like right now her life is upside down and chaotic. But these moments also are there too. And as a photographer, my job for a family is to capture all sides of the story. And often the sides that they don't even know that are there because they're too caught in the chaos of what's going. So shadows. This was a little girl. We were in the backyard, and I saw this white gate. And see how she has her two little bunnies? I often ask kids, like, what's your favorite thing? You know, like, go get it out of your bedroom. Let's put it into the photo that we're gonna do. And so we saw this white gate, and I saw the light, and I saw the deep shadows, but I didn't necessarily know like what I wanted. And so the best thing about working with kids is that they don't expect perfection. Like you're gonna see up here, I'm gonna have two babies and a toddler come up here, and it's going to be anything but perfect. But that's why I love kids, because we don't have to be perfect. We just like have to be free so they can be free, right? And so I asked this little girl to open and close the door like 10 times until I figured out my settings, until I figured out what I wanted, where I wanted to stand, how much shadow I wanted into it. And this is straight out of camera. This is with the Sony a7R III, the 85 millimeter G Master lens, and no editing or touch up to this. I took it into editing because I'm used to doing that, and I'm like, how should I touch this up? And then I was like, this is stupid. Like, why would I waste time with that? So shadows can also echo a story, right? They can just bring more attention to connection that a family has. So think about light in one of two ways: either really extreme backlight or shadows that accentuate emotion, quietness, connectiveness. This is a little cubby hole that was off limits because Mom's an interior designer, so they weren't allowed to be in a space. And those are my favorite spaces to like have the kids be, because they feel like they're getting away with something, and so they have this great nervous energy. So for this shot, I had them lean in and I said, I want you to get so close it's almost like you're touching noses. Right before they touch noses, they start to giggle because they feel so awkward. You can do this with brides and grooms too. It's a great exercise. And then you like get the shot. This one is a family in Virginia, and the baby was, see how I'm using light and shadows, right? See how the shadows are on Mom and Dad, but the baby's illuminated? That's what I'm gonna like kind of demonstrate for you up here in a little bit. But the baby started getting stressed out because of the sound of the shutter. And if baby gets stressed out, Mom gets stressed out, and now we start this stressful cycle, right? And so I remembered with the a7R III, I can shoot in silent shooting mode. So I turned it to silent shooting mode, and I can do it without sacrificing quality to the image. And once I did that, it was like the baby kind of just forgot that there was this camera clicking in their face and just settled into this moment. I have Dad literally standing behind me with like his favorite toy. And the reason I'm doing that is so the baby will lift his eyes up, and I'll catch that beautiful like window light catch light that falls into the eyes. All right, so the third element of adding story is vignettes. So think vignettes are like mini stories. So when you go into a home, or even before you get there, ask your client, where do you guys like to spend the most time Saturday morning? Where do the kids, where do they play when they're by themselves, you know, and what do they play? And you're like coming up, you're creating a vision for yourself of what are all like the mini stories within their larger story. This little guy, he can read, but she can't, and she's like so jealous. And so he was like slowly reading every word to her. And again, using that window light and like the softness there to capture the closeness, the intimacy of the moment. This little girl, this is like one of her favorite dresses. And does anybody know why? Huh? The color? No? Does anyone know why this is her favorite dress? The pom-poms. She loves the pom-poms on the sleeve. And so it's not, you know, focus is not always about focusing on the eyes. Focus should always be about focusing on the story. What is like the mini story in this moment? And for this, it's her sleeve. It's the pom-poms. It's why she loves this. I don't need her to look at the camera. I don't even need to be focused on her face, because then that would take away from what I'm wanting you to pay attention to. All right, so this is, these little guys are in New York, and their dad is so funny. Every year for their dad's birthday, he has me do their family portraits. I've never met a dad like that. Usually the dad is like a little more resistant, and Mom is super excited. This dad books me every year on his birthday to come to New York. And so these kids were really excited. I've done their photos several times, and when kids are excited, they're a little bit like high energy, like more high energy, right, than you want them to be. So one of my like tricks to get them to like bring it down without trying to control them. Because if I try to control kids, then they'll like fight against me, right? So one of my tricks is to have them sit on a narrow space. So it could be like a piano bench, like this right here. This is a windowsill. You can kind of see right here. See the edge of the windowsill? So there's this nervous energy because I'm going to give them an assignment. The assignment is that they have to put their arms around each other. And when I say go, they have to tickle each other, but they cannot fall off the windowsill, right? So dad, in reality, is like,